Of the March 26th, 2020 meeting of the Acton Agua Dulce Unified School District. We have just returned from closed session, and our apologies, especially those of you that are waiting to speak under public comment. Thank you for being patient. This is our first time doing this, and we want to make sure that the board members are present to hear what you have to say, even if they can't comment on that. So, we are going to reconvene the regular public meeting at 7:37 p.m. There has been some relaxation in the process that allows these meetings to happen in terms of the Brown Act, but in terms of the spirit of the Brown Act, that is being maintained in our process. So it's important we carry on the district's business, and I think we're all practicing social distancing. And in fact, you'll notice that most people practice social distancing with me all the time, going back 20 years. Wow, this is very meaningful to me, very meaningful. First, most politicians like to see their name on plaques, because 80 years later, someone can say, wow, they built this building 80 years ago and it's kind of looking tired. How do you say that guy's last name? I've never been motivated by that at all. And so I've kind of been anti-plaque, but this isn't really about me at all. This all started with Vice President Jensen wanting a priority exercise. For that to be meaningful, immediate past President Fox supported what was, I think, the first meaningful board priority exercise that I know about. And I think what happened was the stakeholders of the community became involved to develop the strategic plan and had input. And from that strategic plan, there's different planks of that that have evolved to become kind of like the MO of what our parent groups operate at. So the parent groups at the sites, to me, represent a voice of the community. I didn't write this. The community wrote it, and I think the social initiatives that we've had over the last couple of years to enhance our brand and tell people what that is, I think that the community, this is a community statement, this isn't about me. The plaque, it's humbling to know that my name is not on a building, but it's on an idea, and it's about an idea that represents what this community is really all about. And I'm deeply humbled by that. So the last thing I would like to say about this plaque is I think I could make a guitar out of it. Anybody who knows me knows what that means. That said, the board approved this the last meeting, and I very much appreciate that. So here we go. When conducting the district's business, we will strive to communicate clearly and concisely with respect for the time of others, listen objectively, carefully considering the opinions of others, understand the counterproductive effects of disruptive, demeaning, and intimidating behaviors, understand and respect district policies and procedures, and maintain a respect for the rich history of the district and the efforts of others who have served in the past. And then at the bottom it says, an initiative of Ken Pfalzgraf, Board President, 2019-2020. To the parent groups out there at the sites, you are really the liaison between all of our parents and the administrator and the superintendent. I so appreciate the work that you do. All right, I have a comment. First, as a matter of continuity, I referenced in the last meeting there was to be a hearing conducted with regards to the Valiant Charter in the San Diego courts, initiated by the DA of San Diego County. That was canceled, postponed, and moved from March 20th to April 10th. If anything happens with that I can talk about, I will. you know, a couple months ago, it's been quite the year, because I remember the candlelight meeting. I thought that was pretty odd. But I want to talk a little bit about this distance learning. And of course, I'm the one that will say things that others won't. Let's start off. I want to say that I've been very fortunate in my professional career right now to work for an agency for nearly 2 decades that is very well resourced. And in fact, along the way in my career to get there, I've worked for what the top end companies of whatever it is I do in my field, and I've taken great pains to make sure that my personal skill set is ready to go to work for companies like that, because the bottom line is, it's always been my reasoning that if I'm able to operate at that level, the likelihood that my employer would be affected by an economic fluctuation would be less, meaning that my family would be safer financially. And I will have you know that right now, 3 of those companies or agencies are being debilitated, totally debilitated. So this idea that you're safe somewhere, I don't see that happening anymore. So what does that have all to do at all with what we're here for, what we're talking about? We live in Acton and Agua, Dulce, and I think like even a month ago, we were not worried about much. We were just going along 5 days a week and wondering if there was going to be a fire where I could buy a generator, but things have escalated very quickly out of nowhere. I'm just humbled by the number of people that are being affected by this viral thing, and I don't think it's hit yet as to what it means health-wise, but I mean the economy is being debilitated, and I think that's a pretty much of a no-brainer thing to figure out. But what I want to talk about is the people that work for this district, the teachers and the staff, and I want to remind you that they are people just like us. And I want to remind you, well, I think it's easier, let's play a pretend game. Pretend that you're in a classroom with the children of, say, 20 kids. So you're in there all day with them and dealing with that. And then you go home in the evening and you got your own life. And of course, you had the life to start in the morning before you went to school. But anyway, you get there and you're doing all this, you're balancing all this, and your phone rings and somebody tells you that that stuff that they've been talking about on the television is actually real, and that you're going to stay home and you're not going to be able to go back to your classroom. And in fact, you're going to take up your profession in a completely different format, one that you may not fully understand, be proficient in, and most importantly, that you may not professionally see as a valid method of teaching. But what do? Well, you step up to the plate and you go along with it because you have an obligation. At least you do personally. I think a lot of you do, and look at it this way, that the futures of the kids that you're teaching today have everything to do with today, but also their futures. So we got a couple of things going on in the background here. I'm getting a little sidetracked, but I know that it might scare you as a parent to suddenly realize you are the quality control of your child's education. You are the buck that stops here for the kid who's constantly disrupting the class, because they may be sitting in your living room right now. You may have heard all these rumors about certain teachers or staff members being this or that. Well, guess what, son? You can watch on the television right now to see if that's real or there's been an excuse. Almost forgot. You know how people complain about the school lunch program? You're going to be able to fix that at home, because now you're going to be cooking the meals that everybody's going to love, right? Oh, joy. So guess what? You are going to become the behavioral counselor. You're going to become the principal. And this is all about now some of the issues that we have to deal with as administrators and teachers and things are going to be right in your living room, because you have suddenly become your child's what did I write here? Director of education for each of your children. Well, I think you've been that the whole time, right? So that shouldn't be a shock to you. I'll end by saying this. You know, some people's lives have changed dramatically over the space of a week. And what if at work you were suddenly faced with doing something that you'd never done before, in a way you'd never done it, in a way that you might actually question whether it's valid for you or not, because it flies in the face of classroom seat to seat, face to face. I'm standing up here and ready to walk over to your desk and help you. And I do want to compliment our teachers for doing that because they're living that model right now. Now I will close by saying something memorable but not shocking. If you are going to send me an email in my capacity as a board president right now, and you're going to be critical of the district's teachers, staff, or administrators, don't expect much sympathy from me because I'm going to look for your help right away. I'm going to ask you about your experience as a, what is this, distance learning specialist or consultant, because if you're going to criticize everybody right now, you probably got all the answers and I want to hear them. But if you don't have those answers and you want to know how to approach district staff to talk about them and your concerns, I got this new thing right here called the civility statement, and I'll lend it to you for a day or two. So please remember, these are people, this is a new thing, and it's rolling out fast, and it's new territory for everybody, and I'm glad that our teachers and staff are not checked out because they've been really busy, and that concludes my rant on the COVID virus outbreak or whatever it is. Thank you, teachers and staff, and thank you guys for being here tonight. That concludes my board member comments. So, it is the superintendent's recommendation to hire Ms. Kimberly Shaw as the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Pupil Services, and Education. As always, I will remind you, this employee has now become your baby. Let's move along to approve the contract for the same position, Kimberly Shaw, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, Pupil Services. Superintendent King, does this represent a substantial cost increase to the district?
It does not. It's actually very close to the what the previous salary was of the prior individual.
Are the benefit is the benefit package of this employee equitable with other employees in the district?
That's correct. Certificated management has what's a quote "Me Too" clause with our certificated teachers, and it's in alignment with that.
Thank you. Congratulations, Kimberly Shaw. We are expecting you to do great things. Notice I used the word expecting you to do great things. Moving. We're going to go into business services. I'm going to take a little bit of, I'm going to kind of go out in the weeds here a little bit. I don't want to reference anything or comment about anything that came up in public services or in public comments, but is it absolutely critical that this information item and discussion occurs this evening? Is there a possibility that it could be tabled at all? Yeah, there's nothing to vote on here. I'm in favor of tabling it, but this is the wonder of governmental process, and this is how things work. Okay, so that said, I'm going to take the liberty here. Jackie, would you bullet point your concerns in terms that I could understand with my Oklahoma education to the superintendent as quickly as you can? When you're looking at cost savings, we're asking staff to come up with cost savings, and they're not supposed to be position related or educational program related. So I'm not interested in cutting those kinds of programs, but I am interested in getting cheap and energy, especially when this stuff is not new in terms of the technology. So I'm looking for long-term reductions. I think it's pretty much a no-brainer that up on the hillside up there at the high school, in the slide that we're looking at right now, that I think there's a shot put in a discus area that was being built up there, so we'd have to talk to those people. But it's pretty clear to me that I would love to have a parking spot at my house shaded if I work for the school district. In fact, I think I'll go to work for the school district so I can get that benefit. But short of that, I think it's a no-brainer that it's cheaper for this person that's putting all this in and selling you stuff back not to be digging into an established parking lot with footings and wires and all that type of thing. I will say, as a veteran of some projects like this in sports fields, that if you do a DSA approved project that has a complete sign off, then there's usually as-built that help you find out where not to bore through. But yeah, as a veteran of the oil field, I do understand that drilling rigs scare some people. I think that the question I have is two. Consultant, are you an employee of the company that's actually installing the stuff, or are you a paid consultant?
So I'm an employee of PFMG Solar.
Good, that's good. Okay. Got the sales pitch. That was my only question. Next, is the 3.9%, is that every year it goes up, or is that the 15-year period price increase, 3.9%?
It goes up for 15 years and flat for the last 15.
Okay, so the question, just to be very clear, it's not annually it goes up 3.9%, but over the entire 15-year period it goes up 3.9%.
No. I would say over the first 15 years it's 3.9%, and over the final 15 years it's flat, with an average of probably like 2.6, 2.7.
Okay, or I'm not being rude here, I'm just Ken. We're on a merry-go-round. If I multiply 3.9 by 15, I come up with somewhere almost 50% over 15 years. That's very confusing to me. What I'm asking you, for the collective all 15 years, the price only goes up 3.9% total and not 50. Is that correct? So the 3.9 is not an annual...
To page 6. I think it might be a better, if we're looking at page 6 together, which is a graph that shows the different rates for solar versus Edison, maybe that might help me explain it better. I feel like I'm not answering your question correctly, so I'm hoping that...
Mr. Speaker, I think the answer is, and correct me if I'm wrong, it goes up 3.9% each year for 15 years, and then it does not go up at all for 15 years. And
that's correct.
Mr. President, that's the energy inflation rate that we're paying, 3.9% per year for each of the first 15 years. Now, for reference, and that's what's in the presentation, is Southern California Edison's rates go up more than that on average over an analogous amount of time.
So I get all that. So I think what I'm trying to tell the public here is that over a 15-year period, your rate in comparison to what you're paying in year one would be 50% higher in the 15th year. Yeah, I'll go with that one.
That for you guys.
Huh? I see that in the chart.
Writing and quantify and get you an exact answer.
Listen. Sometimes in government process, you ask questions that have obvious answers, so somebody in the public doesn't think later, well, you said it was 3.9% over 15 years. Thank you, Mike, for quantifying that it is actually a almost 4% increase each year until that collectively equals almost 50% over the 15-year period. That gives us a point of reasoning to look at the chart there that has the purple and green and aqua line or whatever it is, and say, in comparison to what Edison is likely to charge you, let's track it out. But this started off as a very simple question. Is the collective raise over 15 years 3.9%, or is it almost 50% at the end of the, and I have my answer. Thank you. So these blended component units, in summary, my understanding of this is that it gives developers a means of approaching the district, that in order for them to approach the district to work out something, that there is a fund balance that is established immediately and worked against, and then if you continue to work towards something that needs to be funded, that things stop until you fund it. So this is basically a no risk to the district, and it gives developers a means of providing funding to the district, and these special unit agreements pass on from one property owner to the next, and they are part of the title search and would show up there. In terms of preferential treatment, one student against the next, because I live over there and you don't. I don't see that. I don't recall that. But I do recall that there's something about that students who live in the district would have preferential placement over those that do not, and I think that's pretty much a standard in this district now. In other words, for someone to come in from another area, we would have to have the room to accept them, and then there's other issues that go with that that are outside the scope of this discussion. That said, can you verbalize your recommendation, Superintendent King?
Yes, it's our recommendation that the board approve the resolution to establish a capital project fund for blended component units.
And your CFO, your finance person, concurs with that recommendation?
Correct.
Okay, I need to back up a little bit. I get confused with the budget and the budget presentation, how we're certified. This is actually a means of looking at a dashboard and saying, based on our local control and what we want to do educationally, we're getting some indicators here that tell us you need to put some of your resources into this area and that area. And there's been discussions in the past about cohorts and how they follow things and influence scores over the time and things like that. What I do want to say is, Dr. Bice, your experience in your career, your past places you've worked, clearly show that you have an ease of discussing how kids' educational needs are met, especially with your experience in alternative educational delivery models. And I very much appreciate the ease with you went through this and made it understandable for us that don't do this for a living. Lynn, I very much appreciate your ability to hand over projects to the team that helps you and have them and report to the board with this level of competence. So thank you to both of you, and that's a reflection on you, Larry. So the superintendent is asking for direction on the budget study session. Okay, so before we jump into this any further, considering that this was an initiative of Mike when he was the board president last year, I'm in full support of his suggestion that we put this off to the side right now, depend on the thorough discussion we had in the budget presentation for P2. Short of anybody jumping in right now and arguing about that, do I have the other board members' support to just pull this off right now and introduce it later if needed? No comments? Okay. Thank you. Is there anything else you want to add, Larry?
No, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike.